You built a mind sharp enough to see through everyone, and now no one wants to stand near the edge of it. That's the wound. Not that you're unlovable, not that you're broken. You just see too much, too fast, and the seeing costs you every room you walk into. You watch a friend tell a lie to themselves, and you can't unsee it. You watch a relationship built on comfortable delusions, and you know within minutes that it will collapse. And you say nothing, because saying something makes you the villain. So you smile. You nod. You go home and you call it a good night, and some part of you knows it wasn't a good night. It was a performance, and you were the only one in the building who noticed the script. Here's the part nobody tells you. Intelligence doesn't make you lonely by accident. It makes you lonely as a function. The sharper your perception, the fewer people can survive being perceived by you. You ask a question at dinner, and the table goes quiet, not because the question was cruel, but because it was true, and true is heavier than the room can carry. You've felt that silence. You know the exact shape of it. It has a temperature. It drops the second before anyone speaks again, and someone always speaks again, fast, just to cover the hole you opened. So you start editing yourself, dulling the edges, laughing a beat later than you actually found it funny, asking the question you already know the boring answer to, because the boring question keeps the room warm. You call this being easy to get along with. You've gotten good at it. Good enough that people describe you as easygoing, low maintenance, chill. They have no idea how much editing that costs. Nietzsche would call it something else entirely. He'd call it the slow, voluntary murder of the very thing that makes you you, committed daily, in small enough doses that you never notice the body. Think about the last time you actually said the true thing instead of the comfortable one. Maybe it was to a partner who was settling for less than they wanted and calling it peace. Maybe it was to a friend chasing a job that would hollow them out slowly, dressed up as a promotion. You said it once, carefully, and watched their face close like a door. You learned the lesson every sharp mind eventually learns. Honesty is a toll booth, and most people would rather turn around than pay it. Imagine a man who once walked a wire strung high between two towers, sharp-eyed, sure-footed, alone in the air because the air is where the view is. Now imagine him climbing down every single day, just so the crowd on the ground will finally clap for him. He gets the applause. He loses the wire. That's what fitting in costs a mind like yours, paid one small surrender at a time, until you can't remember what your own voice sounded like before it learned to apologize. And the cruelest part isn't the loneliness itself. It's that you've been taught to treat it as a diagnosis, a flaw to fix, a wound to heal, a personality defect standing between you and the intimacy everyone else seems to have for free. You've read the self-help books. Work on your social skills. Be more vulnerable. Lower your standards. As if the problem were a technique you haven't mastered yet, a filter you haven't installed, a softer version of yourself you simply haven't tried on. What if it isn't a flaw at all? What if your loneliness is not the absence of something, but the evidence of something rare, standing exactly where it's supposed to stand, paying the exact price it was always going to pay? That question is going to hurt more before it heals you. Keep going. If these words carved an echo within your void, do not turn back. The descent has just begun. Click below, subscribe, and claim your reality. Nietzsche didn't diagnose loneliness as a wound. He diagnosed it as a symptom of altitude, and altitude, by definition, has fewer people standing at it. Start with what he actually meant by the herd. Not an insult, not a class judgment, a mechanism. Human beings survived for tens of thousands of years by thinking together, feeling together, agreeing together. The herd instinct is the oldest operating system humans have. It rewards sameness with safety and punishes deviation with exile. You already know this in your body. Say something too original at a work meeting and watch the temperature in the room drop 2 degrees. That drop is the herd instinct enforcing itself in real time, and it doesn't need a committee to do it. One raised eyebrow is enough. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Nietzsche said most people never become individuals at all. They remain their whole lives a finger of the herd's hand, thinking its thoughts, wanting its wants, calling it being normal. And this isn't stupidity. Some of the most successful, articulate, socially fluent people you know have never once had a thought that didn't originate outside them first. They are excellent conductors of consensus. They can read a room in seconds and become exactly what it needs. That's a skill. It is not the same skill as seeing, and the two get confused constantly because both look like intelligence from a distance. You, on the other hand, keep noticing the wiring beneath the wallpaper. You clock the performance in a "how are you?" You feel the flinch under someone's confident opinion, the crack under a marriage everyone still calls happy. This is what Nietzsche called becoming ungleichzeitig, untimely, out of step with your era, because you're measuring things by a scale the herd hasn't agreed to yet. Untimeliness isn't a social error. It's what perception looks like from the outside, mistaken for coldness by people who have never once been asked to look as closely as you look by default. Consider the friend who keeps a relationship alive with small, constant lies, to their partner and quietly to themselves. You see the whole architecture of it in a single dinner. The avoided topics, the practiced laugh, the future neither of them actually wants, but both keep describing out loud, as though saying it enough will make it true. Everyone else at the table sees a happy couple. You see the scaffolding holding up a building that's already condemned. That gap between what the herd agrees to see and what you actually see is not a personality quirk. It's the mechanism doing exactly what it was built to do. Now for the concept that will actually break something open. The will to power. Forget the cartoon version. Dominance, conquest, cruelty. That's the herd's misreading of him, ironically proving his own point about how badly consensus mangles anything sharp. The will to power is simpler and far more personal. It's the drive in every living thing to expand, to master its own conditions, to become more than it currently is, rather than merely to survive comfortably as it currently is. Picture 2 people offered the same promotion. One takes it because it's safe, expected, what a successful person does. Pure herd logic, dressed as ambition, applauded at every dinner party for the rest of the year. The other takes it and immediately starts asking a quieter, more dangerous question. Does this actually grow me, or does it just grow my resume? That second question, the restlessness that refuses to settle, even for approval, even for a bigger title, even for the relief of finally being impressive to people whose opinion doesn't matter. That's the will to power operating honestly. It doesn't want comfort. It wants to become, and becoming every single time walks you further from the people who stayed exactly where they were. This is the mechanism of your loneliness, stated plainly. Every act of real growth is an act of separation. You cannot expand your mind and keep your mind's old company at the same width. Something has to give, either your growth or your group. Most people, faced with that trade, quietly choose the group. They stop asking the second question. They call it maturity, settling down, being realistic. Nietzsche called it something far colder, the death of the individual, performed willingly, applauded by everyone who did it first, and needs company in the decision. You haven't made that trade yet. That's why you're still standing on the wire, and it's why the ground keeps calling your name like it misses you. Here's the truth you walked in with, and I'm about to take it from you. You believe that if you just found the right people, smart enough, deep enough, honest enough, the loneliness would end. It wouldn't. And Nietzsche is the one philosopher cruel enough to tell you why. Even among equals, even in a room full of minds as sharp as yours, something in you would still stand apart, because the thing separating you was never them. It was the structure of becoming itself. Nietzsche's entire philosophy rests on one merciless fact. A living thing that keeps overcoming itself can never fully arrive anywhere long enough to be fully known. The moment someone finally understands you, you've already moved past the self they understood. You are, structurally, a moving target. That's not a bad night, a wrong crowd, or a failure of chemistry. That's the price tag on growth, stamped into you at the root, non-negotiable, unrefundable. Think of the smartest relationship you've ever had, the one where you finally felt gotten. Remember how good the first year felt, being finally fully seen. And remember, too, the quieter ache that crept in later, not because they stopped being brilliant, but because you had already moved somewhere they hadn't followed yet. That ache wasn't a failure of the relationship. It was proof the relationship was real. Two moving targets, briefly overlapping, doing the best any two changing things can do. This is where the wire comes back. And this time it's sharper. The wire isn't a punishment. It was never meant to hold two people side by side. That's not a design flaw. That's the entire design. A tightrope built for two isn't a tightrope anymore. It's a bridge. And bridges don't require balance, courage, or sight. Anyone can walk a bridge in a crowd, eyes on their phone, never once looking down, never once needing to be exact about a single step. You didn't climb up for a bridge. Some part of you even now doesn't actually want one, because a bridge would mean you stopped needing to be exact, stopped needing to be you, in favor of being merely accompanied. Sit with that, because here's the darker implication underneath it. The same intelligence that isolates you is not a side effect of your depth. It is your depth, wearing the mask of a personality trait. You cannot amputate the perception without amputating the person. Every fantasy you've had about being normal enough to be loved easily is a fantasy about being smaller. And some quiet, exhausted night, after another dinner that went quiet at exactly the wrong moment, you've actually wanted that. You've wanted to be less, just to be held more. Nietzsche would look at that wish without flinching and call it precisely what it is: nihilism wearing the costume of humility. A small death, requested politely, dressed up as self-improvement. But, and here's where the ground opens under the despair instead of deeper into it, Nietzsche never once, said the man on the wire, has to stay up there gritting his teeth, resenting the crowd below for not following him up. That's still the herd's logic, just inverted, needing their approval by needing their absence, just as badly, building an identity out of being unwanted, instead of building one out of anything real. There is a third way, and it isn't stoic isolation dressed up as superiority. It's amor fati, not tolerating your solitude, not defending it at parties like a badge, but actually loving it as yours, the way you'd love a scar earned doing something worth doing. The instant you stop asking the wire to become a bridge, the height stops being a wound. It becomes the view you climbed for. Breathe there for a second. You're not stranded. You're standing exactly where seeing this clearly was always going to put you. And the air up here, for the first time, doesn't feel thin. It feels like yours. You don't need comfort. Comfort is what you've been drowning in disguised as advice. You need weapons. 4 of them, each one Nietzschean to the bone, each one going to cost you something before it gives you anything back. Asterisk weapon 1. The herd tax. Every time you shrink a thought to make it swallowable, you're not being kind. You're paying a tax, a toll charged for the privilege of belonging, deducted directly from your own mind, invisible on every receipt. Start counting it, literally, for 1 week. Notice every time you round a sharp opinion down to something safer. Every time you laugh a half beat off, just to blend, and name it out loud in your head. Tax paid. You'll be shocked how many times a day you hand over pieces of yourself for change nobody even asked for. The cost of this weapon is uncomfortable honesty at dinner tables that preferred you duller, and a few relationships that were only ever built on the discount version of you. Pay it anyway. A mind that stops paying the herd tax gets its wages back. Clarity, mostly, and the particular kind of respect that only comes from people who were never buying your silence to begin with. Picture the next work meeting where you feel the familiar urge to sand your point down before you say it. Say it whole instead. Watch what happens. Some people will flinch. 1 or 2 won't, and those are the only people worth the room. Weapon 2. The great contempt. Here's an accusation, not a definition. You have been nursing your loneliness, cradling it, checking on it like a wound that gets you sympathy at parties. I just think too much. That's why I'm alone. You've probably said some version of that sentence out loud and felt a small, sick relief when people nodded along. Nietzsche has no patience for that story, and neither should you. He called for something he named self-contempt, not self-hatred, but the refusal to romanticize your current self as a finished product. The man who pities his loneliness will keep it forever, because pity is comfortable, and comfort never grows anything worth having. The man who holds contempt for the version of him still performing normalcy for approval, that man moves, because standing still has finally become unbearable to him. Ask yourself without flinching, which one have you been feeding, the pity or the contempt? This weapon costs you your favorite excuse. You don't get to be the tragic, misunderstood genius anymore, quietly proud of your own isolation. You have to actually become someone, on purpose, starting uncomfortably soon. Weapon 3. Amor fati. Stop asking whether your solitude was fair. Fairness is a herd concept. It assumes a system that owes you balance, a ledger somewhere keeping score on your behalf. Nietzsche's answer was harder and stranger. Love your fate, the whole shape of it, including the parts that scarred you. Because willing it away would mean willing away the mind that made it happen in the first place. Try this literally. Take the loneliest memory you have, the dinner table gone quiet, the friend who drifted after you told them the truth, the relationship that couldn't survive your honesty, and say, out loud, alone in a room where no one can hear you flinch, I would live this again. Not because it didn't hurt, because it built the eyes you're seeing with right now, the eyes doing the reading of this very sentence. This weapon costs you the fantasy of a different, easier past. You don't get one. You get this one, wanted on purpose, claimed instead of endured. Weapon 4. The eternal recurrence test. Last weapon, and it's the one that actually reorganizes your life. Nietzsche's demon asks you a single devastating question. If you had to live this exact life, this exact loneliness, this exact choice you're about to make, infinitely forever, on repeat, with no variation, no skip button, would you say yes? Run every decision through it. Not will this make me happy, which is small and temporary and gone by Tuesday. Ask, could I stand to live this choice eternally? Most of your compromises, the ones you made to avoid another silent room, will fail this test instantly. You'll feel it in your chest before your mind even finishes the sentence. a kind of nausea that tells you everything you need to know. What's left after that is smaller, and finally, entirely yours, unshrunk, unedited, unapologized for. Go back to the wound. The dinner table, the question that stopped the room, the smile you gave instead of the truth you had. Nothing about that room has changed, but you have. This time, picture it differently. Someone says something you know is a comfortable lie. The old you would swallow the observation, smile, protect the silence, drive home rehearsing the sentence you didn't say. Now watch the new one. You set your fork down. You ask the real question anyway, gently but without apology, and the room goes quiet the exact same way it always did. Except this time, you don't shrink from the quiet. You don't fill it with an apology or a joke to soften the landing. You let it sit there, exactly as heavy as it is. You don't need it to turn into applause. You climbed for the view, not the crowd. That's the whole verdict, and it was always this simple, which is exactly why it took so long to see. You were never lonely because something was wrong with you. You were lonely because you kept climbing down to be found. The wire was never punishing you. It was just waiting for you to stop apologizing for the height. Somewhere below, the crowd is still building bridges. Wide, safe, crowded, easy to cross without ever looking down, without ever needing to be exact about a single step they take. Let them. A bridge was never what you were for. You are the one still up there, alone in the air where the view actually is, feeling the wind do what wind does at that altitude. And for the first time, that isn't a wound. It's the address you were always meant to live at, the one no bridge could ever reach. You don't need fewer people to see you clearly. You need to stop climbing down before they do. Stop asking to be found. Start asking to be worth finding. If your solitude ended tomorrow, would the mind that built it still be yours?